Okay, so today on the Lillian McDermott radio show / classroom, I am honored to introduce you to Willie Baronet. And Willie, I've met Willie back in 2015, and he made me aware of the condition of my heart when it came to the homeless. So today I needed a refresher course, and of course, Willie's been doing great things. So I wanted to invite him back to reintroduce him to the classroom, reintroduce him to all of you, and hopefully we can all make a decision to join the journey that Willie is on. So fasten your seatbelt because we're going to learn and grow together. Remember, when the music starts, Willie, you need to dance. Here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here. Right here, and when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
you. This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who have been tuning in since 2011, or maybe just yesterday for the first time, you watched the watch party, just know I am grateful for you. Welcome back. But if this is the first time that you have tuned in, someone said, hey, Willie's going to be on the Lillian McDermott radio show classroom. If this is the first time that you are on, please know I've been waiting for you. Please know this is a safe place that you can turn to when you need a friend. And it is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal. And it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends at Lillian's radio show on Facebook Live, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. As I was saying before we hit the record button, for those of you who are listening on podcasts or later on YouTube, before we did all that, I shared with my Facebook class that I needed a refresher course. I needed to reconnect with Willie. And I believe that anyone who is in our teachers today, our teachers' presence, will understand why we need to always have a friend like Willie around. And so I wanted to reintroduce him to you because, we all have these things where we look away, we turn the blind eye, and I'm going to stop saying I. And I remember when I met Willie, he empowered me to look in the eyes of the homeless in a way that I had never been able to before. And so I wanted to reconnect. And last night I was watching his video, and it reminded me from 2015 how that joy filled my heart without the judgment of what got that person homeless in the first place. And I think we all go through all of those preconceived notions, and Willie will help us redirect this whole attitude that we have when it comes to people who find themselves in the worst place they ever dreamt they would ever be. Willie Baronet was too. He was too. His journey is my journey in the sense that the beginning of his journey was that discomfort, that inability to look at someone because of judgment, because of fear. Whatever it is, Willie will articulate it in a way that will pierce your heart so that you can too do something different. Because if we block ourselves from pain, we will block ourselves from joy. And so I asked Willie back, and he is now part of this huge movement called We Are All Homeless. And indeed, I believe that that is the spark of the fear, that fear of needing to be in a place where we feel loved and comfortable and safe. And so he has the We Are All Homeless project, and you could also go to weareallhomeless.org and be able to join this movement as well. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am honored that Willie Baronet is here to do just that. Welcome back, Willie, to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show /Classroom.
Hi, Lillian. Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, like I said to you, I needed a refresher course. I find myself looking away again. I find myself feeling, you know, helpless. And I think I figured it out yesterday when I rewatched your video and your documentary. And so, but before we talk about that, share your story and what led you to this passion of yours.
Well, as you may remember, this began back in 1993. At the time, I owned and ran an ad agency in Dallas, Texas. And it was the first time I noticed people standing on the street corners holding up cardboard signs. And it may have been before that, but that was the first time it really entered into my consciousness. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed about myself was that there was a part of me that was looking away. Of course, that was before cell phones. So I used to have my different tricks. You know, I'd pretend to be adjusting the radio or whatever. And I didn't like how that felt. And that led to the idea, I wonder if anybody would sell me their signs, and maybe I could do something with the signs. But I think I was looking for a way to change the dynamic. And once I started, I couldn't stop. And that was 26 years ago, about 1,800 signs ago. And it has been a journey I did not expect. I did not really plan for this to turn into a lifelong project, which it clearly has. I certainly didn't plan to film a documentary or do any of the things that have happened as a result. But, you know, I attempt to stay open and trust the process. I teach creativity now at SMU. And so a lot of the time I am telling my students to take risks, to trust themselves, to trust the process. And so I have to practice what I preach. And I realize that this project is probably the single best example for me of being uncomfortable and being willing to just dive into that and see what happened.
Yeah. And, you know, knowing you the way I've gotten to know you through time, because we've stayed connected through the years as well. But, you know, you say you have to, it's like you're like drawn to, you get to. This is a part of you now that you get to do. It's not a have to. And that's where that shift needs to occur with all of us. So when you were adjusting and feeling uncomfortable and looking the other way and pretending that you were unaware of the individual, there is still something happening within us that is going against our spirit that you tuned into. Because who rolls down the window and says, hey, how much do you want for that sign? How much do you want? Nobody does that. We look away and we stay looking away. What prompted you to roll down your window? And back then we probably had to roll. It wasn't a button that you had to press. It wasn't mindless. You had to keep rolling your window down to ask, how much do you want for that sign? What prompted you?
Well, first, let me say there are plenty of people who have for whatever reason, always connected with the folks on the street. And I mean, I've met so many amazing folks in the last 25 years doing this. So not everybody averts their eyes the way I did. At least there are some that seem to just have it in them. But for me, it was a conscious thing. And I don't know where ideas come from. So I really don't know how to tell you where did the idea come into my head to offer to buy the sign. But, I've always been a collector. There's a part of me that I think at some level knew this was going to turn into an art project of some kind, because my background is in creativity, and I didn't at first know what that was. And of course now I've done probably 50 or 60 exhibits using these signs, and primarily I now stay out of the way and try to present the signs in a way that people can experience them. And I try to do it in an artful way, but that's really not the point. The point is to get out of the way of the signs. And it took me a while to figure that out. In fact, in the early days, some of the first signs I bought, I painted on them, I drew on them, I ruined some perfectly good signs, trying to figure what's going to do these. So yeah, I don't know how to answer the question of how did I think of that. It just occurred to me, and I started. And once I started, what I noticed was how different the interaction happened, because something I wanted, I had something they wanted, shaking hands, I was asking them their names. So it became easy way to connect, and the fear I had beginning very quickly went away. So in any case, it's become something that's almost second nature now.
Yes. And after 26 years, yes, you have, and you're a great teacher, not just a professor. You're a great teacher to how we can overcome. So let's talk about these people that you've met on the street all these years, and the statistics of the homeless. Some of the people that you've encountered as you've gotten to know their personalities. Is there a particular personality that finds themselves in the street, or is it anyone could be there?
I think anyone can be there. That's one of the many things I've learned doing this, is that all of my assumptions about people on the street are almost always incorrect. There are obviously lots of different ways people get there. I mean, there's lots of veterans on the street who are suffering from PTSD and other mental health issues. In fact, over a third of the people on the street had some form of mental illness. There are plenty of people, I've met lots of older men whose wives died, and that was the event that caused them to completely fall apart. There's clearly lots of people with substance abuse issues, and people who are from substance abuse, there's always some underlying cause there as well. It seems to me, if there was a common thing, it's about self-worth, and that there is a piece of their background that.
Okay, so we're having an issue. Willie, can you hear me okay? Willie, I think we've lost Willie.
I can hear you. You
can hear me? Okay, perfect. I don't know if there's a connectivity issue on your end, but I just want to make sure that we hear everything that you have to say, because it is so important. So what you're saying is, the statistic of the homeless, 60 to 90% of the people have drug and alcohol, and 20 to 25 have mental issues, which are prompted by the drug and alcohol. How are people helped that are in the street? I know there's a lot of people. You highlight some of them in the documentary as well.
So let me make sure I understand your question. When you say how have people been helped, would you tell me a little bit more?
Yeah, there's a lot of.
I understood the question.
Some of the statistics that I've read out there about the homeless show that 60 to 90% of them are have drug and alcohol addictions. Is that what you've discovered?
Well, it varies from city to city. I know that I've heard the statistic about a third generally have some form of mental illness, and then in addition to that, there is sometimes 20 to 30%. In addition to that, may have substance abuse. But the truth is that is a fluctuating statistic.
Got
It's
it.
certainly a high number, though.
Yes, yes. So when you're looking at people that are on the street, you know, you're seeing through the eyes of compassion. But there is, for most people, just like you were at the beginning in your journey, there is a fear. Let's talk about that fear. What could that fear be within me? And let's dive a little bit deeper in taking ownership. And just recently, I remember after my first and my second time of meeting you and having you in the classroom, Willie, I went out and I felt that I could give unlimited. I can just be a giving tree, so to speak. And my judgment came away. But little by little, I have allowed that anger, because I'm seeing that it's being abused. Like every corner has somebody now that seems to be asking for money. And I don't know what's happened to me. And I don't know if any of you feel this way, or those of you who are watching, there's a bit of an anger or resentment that I'm working really hard. And there are people that are just asking for a handout. So help us overcome that judgment or fear that we might have.
Wow, that's a tall order. I'd say a couple of things. One, I understand that, and it's easy to, at least for me, I've experienced that feeling of I'm working hard. Why can't they?
Correct.
What did they do wrong to get them to that place? And those are conversations that typically happen in my head before I start talking to that person. Mm-hmm. After talking to those folks, and I've now had thousands of conversations, it really changed the fact that I'm aware that those projections, all of that's really inside of me, and that's really not the reality of the situation. And I'm not saying people haven't made mistakes. I've made mistakes.
Sure, I have too.
I could have had a catastrophe. I could have had, if I didn't have the support network that I've got, the safety net, it could have been me. And I certainly have relatives who have experienced either being homeless or close to homeless. Mm-hmm. I've got lots of friends who have spent months on the street, if not longer. And I've become friends with some of the folks that I bought sign from. And so I've learned some stories from that perspective as well. I don't think, when I talk to people, a lot of people have their own judgments about themselves. And I sometimes say that a big part of my work, in fact, the biggest part of my work is really for the housed, not the homeless, because I'm really trying to help folks who do have the resources to not be so hard on themselves and to realize they're judging themselves. And that does not help anybody, especially people they may run across.
Sure.
So some of this is about helping them to understand that we all have stories in our head. There's nothing wrong with that. That's human nature. But what I have discovered about me is that when I become aware that I'm passing judgment on somebody before I know anything, that's really about me.
Yes.
I think another big thing that comes across for a lot of people is, I don't want to give money. They're going to use that for drugs and alcohol. Mm-hmm. I get that. So two things that I typically would say to that. One is, whatever you're called to do, whether it's simply to smile and wave, or if you want to hand out food or water or go buy 2 sandwiches and sit down with somebody and share a meal, whatever that is, I would say, if whatever you're comfortable doing, allow yourself to do that. And the second thing that I've learned is that for a lot of folks on the streets, especially those with some form of mental illness, they do not have access to healthcare or meds in a lot of cases. Some of these people are paranoid and would never stay in a shelter. And for some people, I believe truly that drugs and alcohol may be their best hope to get to the next day. Obviously, that's not the way I want it to be, and I would love for everybody to get the service and help that they need. But that's the reality. So that's changed for me as well.
Yeah. And so share some of the most touching moments that you have experienced, whether they were on camera in the documentary or before you even thought of doing a documentary, or behind the lens, before any camera is out. What was the first one that you will carry with you, that if you have a doubt, to roll down your window and help somebody, that's what keeps you going, that image?
I think since you and I last talked, the biggest example of that has been one of the guys you saw in the documentary, a guy in Philadelphia whose name is Eddie. Mm-hmm. I bought Eddie's sign while we were filming the documentary in Philadelphia. He was just one of the guys I met. We happened to, he gave us permission to interview him. And he had a sign that said, something to ponder. What if God occasionally visits Earth disguised as a homeless person to see how charitable we are?
Yeah, yeah.
So I knew immediately I liked this guy just because he was clever, and I liked the message of that. I asked him about that sign in the film, and he told me the story of being angry at some people who had said some mean things to him. Mm-hmm. And that's what inspired the sign. Well, 2 years after buying that sign, I had posted on Facebook a photo of me speaking about this project, mm-hmm. and Eddie's sign was behind my head. And I get a Facebook message from Eddie, some guy named Eddie in Philadelphia, and he says, "Hey man, you may not remember me, but that was my sign. I want you to know that I got sober shortly after that. You didn't know I was a heroin addict, but I've been sober now for almost 1.5 years.
Wow.
And I have a job." He had a new grandson and had reconnected to his kids. And so Eddie and I began this back and forth. And a few months after that, Eddie and I actually did a TEDx talk together. And he joined me on stage, and I asked him some questions about what life behind the sign, what that was like. He and I have now done several panels. I've done lots of events in Philadelphia. And so I have had occasion to see him regularly. The last time I went to Philly, which was just a few months ago, I was doing an exhibit at a church, a Catholic church. That's a whole nother story about my mom, which maybe we'll get to. But Eddie joined me there for a Q&A with people who were there to see the exhibit. Mm-hmm. And on that trip, Eddie took me to his apartment, and I got to go into his home, which he was very proud of. And our documentary movie poster was framed on the wall, and we took a selfie in front of that. And in some ways, Eddie has become a sign to me that, first of all, everybody can make different decisions. Everybody struggles. He had a really rough background, which I won't go into great detail, but it was a really rough place that led him to using heroin, even when he had 2 kids. And, the stories he's told me continue to just remind me to pay attention and to withhold my judgment. He is one of the most compassionate guys I know. He's hilarious too, but he is really compassionate. And I think he does a great job with his sponsees and the people that he helps there in Philadelphia.
That's wonderful. So he's paying it forward. And did your interview with him have anything to do with it? Because I know that there's other angels out there helping the homeless. You know, and there's always one, you know, there isn't just one person. It's a lot of people that come together. And did anything particular happen to Eddie that made him say, I can do this?
Well, I believe it was just a couple of months after he and I met that he decided he had tried rehab. None of that worked. And so he basically took himself to jail. He had some outstanding tickets and stuff. And he was able to go to jail and get sober because there was no way for him to keep using. In his words, he tells me that it was really a change in the fact that he realized that the drugs were masking something else. And he just became aware of that while he was in jail, and literally got out of jail, went to Goodwill, got a tie and a coat, and started applying for jobs with his mom's help. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there was a specific event. It wasn't meeting me, but it was just coincidental that it happened then. And then 2 years later, we reconnected, and I think we're going to be friends forever.
That's wonderful. Those are great stories. And for those of you who would like to watch this documentary, we are giving away a viewing. We are giving for those of you who want to watch this documentary, which I suggest very strongly, to text me at 407-373-5959. Text me at 407-373-5959 and claim your viewing. This is a wonderful, Willie, I couldn't help. This is the second time that I've watched your documentary, Signs for Humanity, or Signs of, or Signs for Humanity. I can't remember.
Signs of Humanity.
Of Humanity. Signs of Humanity. And I couldn't stop, like I had to stop myself from crying. And I think the crying that I felt, like I wanted to sob the whole entire time. This is not for that, but it was like I think it was an examination of conscience. That's why, because of the judgment. And like you said, the judgment I have of others is really the judgment of me. And, you know, and it probably is for me, is I'm working so hard. I'd love for people just to hand me money. And it was like this, I remember the feeling of freedom, being able to give and be able to look at someone in the eyes and say, I know that you're going through a tough time right now, and I'm very sorry for that. But then after a while, you're seeing that it's becoming like a job to beg, you know? And then that's when my heart got a little harder, when you see people that, like, in every corner there's somebody with a sign, and I was just having a difficult time with it. And so, you know, as we're going through that, I wanted to just say, how dare I judge somebody else, because I don't want to be judged. Is there anything you would like to add to that?
Well, sure. I mean, and again, I want to say I understand that impulse. I think it's human nature for us to judge people, to make up opinions, because that's how we deal socially in the world. Yeah. What I know is that the numbers have not gotten better, that as a country, we are not doing as great a job as other countries in the way we treat our people on the streets. Income inequality has gotten worse in this country. There's reason for this. There's reason for the hopelessness. There's reason for some of just the way the numbers are going. And at the same time, as you mentioned earlier, I meet angels all across this country who are doing amazing things, whether they're working in shelters or inventing new products. Just yesterday, and people are always sending me new information, homeless stories, etc. But someone sent me an invention about a piece of clothing that converts to a sleeping bag. Wow. And so there's all these inventions out there. There are mobile showers that people have come up with. So I say all of that because it's always a both and for me. It's never an either or. There are people that are struggling, and yeah, are there bad people on the streets or people who are really mean? I really haven't run across them, to be honest. In 26 years, I've really not had anybody be mean to me.
You're not looking for it. You find what you're looking for, really.
Well, it may be part of it. I've certainly met people that I could tell had some sort of mental incapacity and couldn't make sense or whatever. But I really haven't encountered meanness on the street. And I get the hopelessness, and I've talked to them, and it's funny because occasionally I'll have a conversation with somebody who is intelligent, and I remember a guy in Cincinnati in particular. His wife died, or they had a big health crisis, and this guy was really intelligent, but he just lost it after that. And so I think it happens for people that a lot of people wouldn't expect.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the underlying fear. There, by the grace of God, go I.
Right.
And so any of us can be there. We just don't understand what gets someone to that point. Perhaps maybe it's not for us to understand, but for us to have compassion. And maybe these people are sent to us to expand our compassion. And so with that in mind, how can we, and I'm all about being the solution. How can we be part of the solution? How can we help this movement? We are all homeless. How can we help you? How can we help others?
Well, let me say one other thing too about that. The idea about judging others and how that happens. What I want to say too is I know there are bad bankers out there. I don't think that means all bankers are bad. I know that there are bad priests out there. That doesn't mean all priests are bad. I know there are bad cops out there. Why is it seems to me, that people are so willing to, because they believe there's one bad homeless person out there, they're willing to just disparage an entire group of people? It seems like that's the group we're the roughest on when it comes to judging, and that makes no sense to me. So, yes, I wanted to reinforce that point, that this really is about looking and having some compassion and remembering the stories in my head. Yeah. In terms of how we can help, I think there are lots of ways to help. If someone in particular wants to help the We Are All Homeless Project, we have a donate button on our website. We are looking to develop a TV series to extend the stories of the documentary and to travel city to city and continue telling these stories. I would like to do a documentary about Eddie Dunn.
I would love him to be in the classroom. Do you think we can get him on?
He will do whatever. He is the most generous guy. I've never asked him for anything that he didn't say yes to.
Okay, well, let's get him on.
He's been on every panel. I think you'd find him wise and hilarious. He would be super entertaining. But my point is that in addition to the art exhibits, which I continue to get to do all over the place, I really do want to develop more content. We're in the midst of trying to finish a book. There's other stuff that requires money that we want to do to keep telling stories. So that's one way to help. I think that in the more general sense, there are plenty of resources out there people can volunteer at and donate to and all of that sort of thing. There are the simple things of how are you going to interact when you encounter somebody? And again, I think smiling and waving. I think a lot of people feel like, wow, if I can't give them something, I shouldn't even make eye contact. Nothing could be further from the truth. Smiling and say, hey, have a nice day is a powerful connection. It's a sign of humanity. And it is, to me, at the really core of this. Our attitudes are never going to change about laws or policies or anything if we don't allow ourselves to be uncomfortable, to have that human connection. So that's the bigger thing. It's like whether you want to hand out water bottles or power bars or whatever, great. I say do whatever you're called to do, but at the very least, make eye contact.
I love that idea, Willie. We don't just have to give money. We can give a smile. We can give acknowledgement, because throughout your documentary, and by the way, for those of you who want to watch this documentary, it cannot be purchased anywhere. You can give a donation. Also, if you want to watch it, text me at 407-373-5959. If you're out of the country and you can't text me at 407-373-5959, send me a message through instant message. But I love the idea of carrying water in my car. I can just handle water. That's a helpful way. I acknowledge them. But throughout the documentary, the theme was, we're invisible. No one's looking at us. And that is a fear we all have, that they're living every day. So help us with that, get past that.
Well, one of the things that completely shifted my perspective when I was in grad school, so this was when this was really starting to take shape, about 2009, 2010, I got some of my friends together, and we literally got on the street as a big group and held signs and trying to stop traffic and trying to hand out cards to let people know about the project and whatever. That experience of holding a sign on the street and being completely ignored by people changed me. And I know I'm probably a little sensitive and I have a weak constitution, but when I'm on the street for 2 hours, and I was demoralized after that. For people that do that 8 hours a day, day after day after day, I don't care what else I know about them. What I know is that is a demoralizing experience. I have been yelled at along with other people while I was talking to people on the street. I have had people yell the rudest, most awful things to us because I was talking to this guy on the street. And it's just a horrible way to spend the day.
Well, at least you're doing it. At least you're doing it. We need to be aware. We get to be aware. And I'm so grateful, Willie, that you came back. And I'm looking forward to having you back with Eddie. Because I really think that this would be a wonderful perspective for all of us, a follow-up, a retooling. I want to challenge everybody. I'm going to go out and I'm going to, as a matter of fact, I'm going to carry some water in my car, and I'm going to start doing that, because my issue has been, I think that we all have this fear about not being seen, or about being homeless, or about not belonging. But I love the question you ask throughout is, what is home to you? And I'd love for you to share, Willie, what home has been for you, that concept as a child. What did that mean to you as a child, and what it means to you today?
Yeah, so it wasn't the first time I did a TEDx talk about this in 2012. I addressed that briefly because that was really the first time that I started to pay attention to the fact that even though I came from a big family. We didn't have a lot of money, but I came from a big family. I talked in that first TED Talk about the fact that my dad, who had some anger issues, I grew up feeling afraid constantly. I was terrified as a kid. And so for me, at that point, I realized that home was connected to safety. And that was something I didn't feel a lot growing up. Mm-hmm. And I started to ask that question, not just when I was speaking about the project, but also making the documentary. I asked everybody, so what does home mean to you? Mm-hmm. And what I've discovered is the answers from people on the street versus the housed, people like you and I, those answers are indistinguishable from each other. Mm-hmm. Some people talk about family and love and their pets, food, smells, locations, a feeling, and it's indistinguishable. The people on the street have the same answers. And so that has become a powerful question for me. I do think that at some level, your point about being invisible is key. I have one sign in particular that says, "Have you ever felt invisible before?" That stopped me in my tracks the first time. And I think I bought that sign over 20 years ago. But that sign in some ways encapsulates this better than anything.
Yeah. Let's talk about those signs, because you are very generous. When you roll down your window and you say how much you want for that sign, you don't haggle. And if they want more, you give them more. And so you've bought signs for well, I don't think you've ever bought one for $5, but $10, $15, $20, $30. How much money, when you went on your road trip, I'm wondering, because I was trying to calculate, but I know that there was many times in the documentary that there is nothing on there of, the people that, there are more people that you probably encountered than you documented. And so
a lot more.
1,800 signs, but for your road trip for this documentary from Washington all the way to New York City, how much money did that cost you in signs?
In signs, I believe we ended up spending about $6,000, $5,000 or $6,000. I think we ended up, and we did an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign to fund this trip. Of course, we had no idea what was going to happen afterwards, but we bought almost 300 signs, and I think the average price was probably $15 a sign. So whatever that works out to, that's about how much we spent.
Yeah, wow. But I'm sure that in the 26 years, you have spent a heck of a whole lot more than that.
I have, and at the same time, I've had a successful career, and I teach full time now, and I'm happy to do this. This project has been, it's connected me to people all over the world. I have learned more doing this project than any other single thing. Yeah. I have spent a lot of money. I've also had a lot of friends buy signs around the world and send them to me. Yeah. And so I've also been given a lot of signs from people who just wanted to help. And I would say that to your listeners too, that if anybody's interested in buying a sign, what I love more than anything is hearing the story of the connection that someone has to someone else. And again, it's not about judging their life. It's simply about two human beings connecting for a brief moment.
Yes. And what I got from you, Willie, in the first, and every time that we have an interaction, and by the way, Willie is going to be highlighted in my book. The book that I'm writing, wrote a beautiful article about forgiveness and love. And so I'm excited to highlight Willie as well. But every conversation that we've ever had has lifted my spirit. And so as you are, talking about, the giving and people donating to your project, where can we, if we wanted to buy a sign, where could we send a sign to?
So you could go to our Facebook group anywhere and send me a message. You can message me through the website, weareallhomeless.org, any of those places, and I'll send you an address, and I will pay for shipping, and I'll pay you back for the sign.
I don't think you would need to pay anybody back for the sign. I think that's it. We all have our hurdles and our goals. And I certainly believe that this is a great challenge for today and a great challenge for our life. And sometimes we become hardened. And I must say, Willie, I have a vision board. I know that you have boards all over the place, and I have a vision board, and I keep focusing on that vision. And I had some goals, and all of a sudden I'm like questioning my vision board. This was a couple of weeks back, or about a month or so back. And on there was belief, right? On there was a word called belief. And I was frustrated because some of the things that I wanted to happen are not happening fast enough and not happening on my time. And all of a sudden I looked at the word belief, because I cut it out from the magazine, and I noticed that the I and the E were red. The belief was white, the I and the E were red. And all of a sudden I saw lie in the middle of believe. And I'm thinking, we have all we have told ourselves a lie. in our belief system, there is a lie. And we have a lie about homelessness as well. And I think that one of the purposes of reaching out to you and having you come back for the classroom is I needed a new lesson. I needed to think beyond the money. I wanted to think beyond and offer solutions, because this is about solutions. And so because I was feeling frustrated about this particular issue that I want now, I want it now, and I realized I had a lie about it, and I had to dissect it. I had to ask myself, and we created a meme, excuse me, we created a meme that says, what is the lie at the center of your belief?
Wow.
And so
I like that.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was one of the things that I had to start dissecting. What was the lie that was keeping me from that abundance? What is the lie? And so with that, you're helping us get beyond the lie of homelessness, get beyond what can I do? I'm just one person. So we are offering solutions today as to what we can do. We can go to weareallhomeless.org. We can buy a sign. We can give water. What are some of the other things that people have been creative and thinking outside the box that we've been able to do, Willie, that you've known of?
So one of the most rewarding ripples of this project, which is what I call the results of this, I love speaking to students at schools, and often I will hear about the students getting together after a presentation and they will do a coat drive or a blanket drive. I often tell them the most needed clothing item on the streets is socks. And so I have seen students do sock drives, which I think is important. Women on the streets often don't have access to feminine products. And there are women who go into a McDonald's and get a stack of napkins out of a dispenser because they don't have any other resources. I've seen young girls do drives for specifically products for women that are on the streets. That is a number that is rising. The segment of the homeless population that is rising the fastest is female veterans, which, again, to me, it's all hard for me to grasp how much of that is going on. And I think that all of this really just requires people taking a little time, being willing to shift their perspective a little bit. There's so many, there's great inventions that are happening. People are developing products. People are, I think, taking to activism in other ways too. There have been places that have put spikes on rails and things to keep people from being able to lay down. And I think there have been a lot of activist responses to homelessness in different ways. And so a lot of it is really just trying to change the perspective. But I will also say that from my perspective, what I am trying to also do is to be gentle with the housed, because it's very easy for me to get impatient with people and want to say, come on, seriously, really, is that really what you believe? And the real truth is that most people just don't know, and they're going about their lives. They're working 2 jobs. They're doing whatever they've got to do. And I've learned to be a lot more compassionate and gentle with the housed. And that's been a powerful lesson for me as well. It's really about, when I say signs of humanity, I'm really trying to be human with everybody. It's so easy to judge everybody. Yeah. People with money, people without money, people in the streets, people that are powerful, rich bankers, whatever. It's so easy to want to judge people.
Yeah. And again, we just need to ask ourselves, what is the lie in that belief? What is the lie at the center of that belief? What brings us anger? And I remember the day, like after, back in 2015, 2016, I think I was just like walking down the street, just giving out money. And it made me feel so good. I was with a girlfriend as well. we just went to an ATM, got a bunch of ones, and we walked down, and it was like a downtown Melbourne. And there's a lot of people there. I don't know if you remember meeting the young man that was playing the guitar that I invited him to go on the show, because I loved sitting down with him. I love sitting down with him because he was doing something. You know, it's like, okay, he's actually working for his money. And I didn't mind just putting all my money in there because I felt that he had earned it. And it's that earning belief, like I have to earn this or I have to earn that, it's that the lie at the center of the belief. And so, you know, knowing that we all need money, I'm going to shift a little bit here and talk about my sponsors because it's so important. I want to encourage all of you to keep this classroom flowing and going. It's so important that we go to whenyouneedafriend.com, subscribe, and while you're there, please make sure that you go to all my icons for social media, like and follow, whether you subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on my website, and also acknowledge all my sponsors. Click on the sponsors page. You know, we have Liberty Health Share, First Alternative Care, the pharmacy, Keep Me Safe Organic, Live Longer Medical. These are sponsors that are standing by my side and saying, we believe in what you're doing. So please figure out ways that you can sponsor them the way that they are supporting the show and classroom. And also you can become a supporter as well as an enrolled student. So going back, I just want to thank you for that. If you want to watch this documentary, which is life-changing, it will change your perspective. Call 407 or call or text 407-373-5959 or send me an instant message on Facebook at Lillian's Radio Show so that you too can be a part of this movement. Willie, is there anything you want to add? I know that I've shared a lot about, you know, so if there's anything you'd like to add to what I just said earlier or anything that you'd like to add.
I don't know if we have time to tell another story about another guy.
We do have about 4 minutes left. However, after we say goodbye to podcast, and we can absolutely look at some questions that our viewers have. So will it take more than 4 minutes or 3 minutes?
I'll outline it quickly because another guy that I met, and he heard about this project online. By the way, we are on Instagram and Facebook, and yes. I'm not the best social media person, but there's plenty of ways to connect with us as well.
Yes.
But a guy in Lansing, Michigan named Chris Pruitt contacted me, and turned out at the time he was close to 60 years old. He was on the streets in Lansing. He called himself the happiest homeless person in Lansing. And his signs were 4 to 5 feet long, very artistic. And he said, dude, you need some of my signs. So he had this burner phone, and that was basically, he was a very avid person online, even though he was sleeping in the cold in Lansing, Michigan. Long story short, I now have about 80 of his signs, which he keeps and kept at a church in Lansing. He now has gotten housing. He is doing drives for the homeless, especially homeless children in Lansing. And he, you know, has a couple of nickels to rub together. And this guy is so inspiring. He's certainly got his, you know, he's angry at people, and he's probably less patient in some respects with some folks. He wants them to wake up. But he has been another person through his creativity and his hilarious signs, and just his spirit has really changed and made me realize there are people out there doing things. He's the other documentary that I want to make. I've got 2 people that I really want to make documentaries about, and he's the other one. So if we can get funding for either of these, that's going to happen too. Chris's story is amazing.
Absolutely. And for those of you who follow me on Facebook and like me and follow, I want you also to share this video with everybody that you meet. Just know that I posted like a teaser of the documentary that has had over 6 million views. Way to go, Mr. Willie Baronet.
Hey, can I add one thing to that?
Yes.
From a social media perspective? I was teaching in London this summer. I teach at SMU, and so we were doing a study abroad class. I was telling my students about this project, and I told them that a couple of years ago, a Russian media company asked me if they could do a story. They did it on Instagram. It got like 400,000 views like that.
Wow.
While I was in London, they reposted it. It already has over 170,000.
I want that person to post on my page to get me out there too, because this is information that needs to help empower us. Willie Baronet, we're going to continue our conversation after we say goodbye to our podcasting friends, but we're going to continue our conversation on Facebook Live at Lillian's radio show. Thank you so much, Willie.
Thank you, Lillian, so much for having me.
And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you, and Willie Baronet wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever.
The opinions
Oh,
and
that's
advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Oh, Willie, you are an amazing man, and I am just so thrilled that you are back. And you are welcome to come back here anytime. And I think I need to make you a Lillian McDermott radio show /classroom mug so you can drink out of that with every interview. Because I'm looking at your NPR. You're looking at the NPR. Let's share that little story of all your journey and your, just the love that you've received along the way.
You know, the NPR thing, I don't know how much we talked about this, but that happened as we were traveling across the country, and I was asked to do an interview on All Things Considered as we were approaching Washington, D.C. It was the craziest thing ever. Mm-hmm. That interview was heard by a woman in Philadelphia named Rosie Frasso, who's a researcher. At the time she was at UPenn, now she's at Jefferson, and she contacted me because of that show. We have now done 2 big research projects together. One of them was published in the American Journal of Public Health, just about the signs. And she's amazing. She and her grad students, we bought, I think last fall, we bought 90 plus signs in Philadelphia in a week.
Wow.
So she has become and she's another reason that Eddie and I have gotten to connect, because we've done a bunch of things in Philadelphia. Yeah. But that story's not over either. Rosie has big plans for more research projects. So,
well, I think that if we just put the name behind the person, behind the judgment, and we maybe not even the name, the heart of the individual and what they must be feeling. I mean, that like when you talked about standing in the street with a sign for 2 hours, I have to tell you, I don't know if I shared this story with you, but when I was going through my transformation and becoming, actually this was my transformation where I started going to personal growth courses and all of that. And this was part of my journey through this program. I needed to dress up as a homeless person. And I'm just having this memory now. And wow. I needed to be out in the street, and I was not able to be near my car, or I needed to experience homelessness. And I remember sleeping on the floor that night when I was given my assignment. And I found a box, and I slept in a box on the floor. Now, I wasn't outdoors. I was inside. And I started the thoughts and the feelings that I experienced during that time. I'm glad I'm remembering this now. Was that my fear was not so much of homelessness; it was of not being loved. Right.
You're bringing up another thing. A lot of schools across the country and organizations do a one-night sleep out event. It is obviously not the same as being homeless, but students will sleep outside and they'll have a piece of cardboard, and that's essentially just so they can experience what that's like to not have access to a toothbrush, not have access to their electronics, et cetera, even if it's just for a 12-hour period.
Yeah.
I think there are lots of organizations that are attempting to humanize the experience. So,
yeah. And they're giving in schools also, Willie, I'm sorry, schools have come up with programs where they give kids backpacks, and they're filled with food. They're filled with, supplies, shampoo, soap, a bar of soap. I love the socks idea. I can carry socks without worrying that the plastic is going to, get melted in my car or whatever.
right.
There's so many things that we can do to create awareness, but nothing like me sleeping in that box for that night and the next day being out in public, home, looking like a homeless person, no makeup. I didn't even put lipstick, and nobody sees me without lipstick. And so, but I'm sure that was just a speck of what someone must feel like. You standing out in the street with a sign, that was a speck, because you just did it for 2 hours, or I just did it for one night and one day. But people are doing this day in and day out. Are you seeing a movement towards that hope that, you're saying that the people being out in the street is increasing? Is there a reason for that increase? Because the economy seems to be doing well.
Well, the economy is doing well, but I think generally it's doing well for people who are already doing well. And the numbers bear that out. So some of this is about income inequality. Some of it's about programs being cut. Some of it's about, the way charitable donations can be deducted. There's a lot of factors that contribute to this. And at the same time, back to your point, that demoralization that happens when people are on the street. Imagine you're on the street for a week or a month, and you endure this day after day, and you're sleeping in those kinds of conditions. You have no address where you can receive mail. Imagine how likely it is that you're going to go out and be able to apply for a job when what your biggest concern is eating. It's hard for people to really grasp this. And so I think any of those activities that allow people to just slow down and experience it, be willing to see what it's really like out there on the streets, I think that does a lot to change people's perspective.
Yeah. One of the things, and for those of you who are watching, I want to thank you for watching. If you have any questions for Willie Baronet about his experience, his journey, how you can help or whatever, type in a Q and I will ask your question. But I just want you to know that you've softened Ginny's heart. She's been watching and making comments, Willie, throughout the class today. So it's nice to see that, we could all be like Grinches. We could all be like the Grinch. And I'm telling you that when I sat down with you, and this was back in 2015, my heart grew 3 sizes that day. And I think all of us go through a time, and we need refreshers. We need to remember, that time that we made a mistake, and I don't believe in mistakes. I believe in growth opportunities. But some don't have that mindset. After a while, Willie, what I'm hearing you say is that after a while, that creativity is numbed, it's dimmed. And so thank God for some earth angels that are out there that are bringing dignity back into the people. In Brevard County is the sharing center of North Brevard, I believe. I did an interview with them, but nothing like, they're doing so many things. They have food. They offer so many ways for people to become, get a hand up instead of a handout. Are there any organizations that you'd like to mention that perhaps we could also reach out to?
Nationally, I would love to mention Help USA. they're headquartered in New York City, but they've got locations around the country. The head of Help USA is Maria Cuomo Cole. She's married to Kenneth Cole, the shoe guy, for people who know shoes. She's also the daughter of Andrew Cuomo. And what I would say is their organization in some ways is really taking this process of integrating people back, giving them housing, all of the different kinds of sources. I think in Dallas, we have a number of organizations too, the Bridge here, MDHA, the Housing Crisis Center, the Stew Pot, the Austin Street Shelter. There's tons of places here in Dallas that are doing similar things. Some offer job training, some give haircuts, some have kennels for pets, some provide food, some provide housing, some provide transitional housing, some specialize in helping veterans. So there's organizations all over the place that are doing great things. Nationally, Help USA is the one that jumps out to me. They have, they continue to do amazing things. And, I try to, anybody that I can help, or, I've been a keynote speaker for organizations to help them raise money. I love to do that as well. So
yeah, I know I have family and friends that promote the Hearts of Gold and the Coalition for the Homeless in Orlando, and perhaps maybe I can see if they want to maybe introduce you so that you can give a talk with them. Or I want to help in any way I can. You have helped me think outside the box once again, and I think my heart grew 3 sizes again this day. So thank you, Willie, for everything that you're doing to promote the human side, the human side of being homeless, because it's very easy to look the other way. But you've challenged me again, once again, and I'm going to figure out ways.
To.
Oh, I love it when you do. I love it just like I challenged you. Like I challenged you when you wrote for my for the book.
You did.
I did.
I did not expect to get so deep that day, but thank you for that.
Well, I love it. I love it. And so, we are here for one another. We are all part of the solution. We just need to figure out where our part fits in. Your part is buying signs. Maybe that's not comfortable for me. Maybe my part is buying socks and giving them out on the streets. Maybe my part is giving water because I am all about hydration. So it's, we need to figure out how we can fit in the greater picture, because we're all a part of this puzzle. We're all a part of homelessness, because that could be us. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to mention, you mentioned socks again, and I want to mention there are a couple of organizations, a couple of brands. There's a company called Bombas, Bombas. Every time you buy a pair of their socks, they donate a pair of socks.
Okay.
They completely unannounced sent me a box of 500 pairs of socks they developed for the homeless population.
Wow.
That over the course of a couple of years, I kept in my car and was able to hand out. And they're an organization that I like supporting. There's another one called the Joy of Socks, and they do a similar thing. They are all about trying to help get socks to people on the streets. So there are companies out there doing amazing things like that, and I just wanted to highlight those two.
Well, I love it. And for those of you, and I know, hello, Yvonne. It's so nice to see that you've joined us. She's watching from Malaysia.
Wow. Hello,
Malaysia.
Yvonne.
Yes. And Jenny, and I'm trying to remember where, because there's so many people that come in and out, where you're from. For those of you who would like to share where you're watching from and how you're going to make a difference today, how has this lesson from Willie, this class from Willie, challenged you today? I'd love to hear from you and what you can be. What is your part in the solution when it comes to homelessness? And so you had shared, oh yes, Missouri. I'm so sorry, Jenny. Okay, so not sorry that you live in Missouri, but I'm sorry, I forgot. But so Willie, when it comes to anything else that maybe we need to mention that we didn't talk about today, part of it was your travels to other countries other than the United States. What is homelessness like outside of the United States? Have you been able to get your pulse around that?
Not to any great degree. I've probably spent the most time because of studying abroad and teaching abroad. I've done a few months in London, and I've bought a lot of signs in London. I've had students buy signs for me while they're in London. In some ways, it's probably the most similar to the U.S. in that they speak English, and signs are a pretty regular thing. There are parts of the world where signs are not a thing. Asia, I was in Japan and Thailand, never saw a sign in either of those countries. I did buy a sign in Morocco, and I know there are signs in other Western countries, et cetera, and obviously Mexico and Canada. I think they're a little bit more prevalent. I think I now have signs from 11 different countries, 10 or 11 different countries, but nowhere are they as prevalent as the United States. I don't know the specifics. I certainly know just by watching the news that there are populations all around the world that are struggling, and that really has nothing to do necessarily with, I mean, every country's got that, and there are countries that have a far higher percentage of people living in poverty. But no, I don't know anything specific that I can share.
Perhaps you can pass that baton on to people that are watching today. I know that Yvonne, you're in Malaysia, and perhaps you're able to buy some signs, not buy some signs, but help out and maybe report on what it's like in the populations out there that are in, how do we take care of our own? How do we do it without judgment? And as we experience, as we peel the onion of blocking ourselves from reaching it. Okay, so Willie, bottom line is this. It's difficult. I want to help. I want to help everybody I meet. It is part of my nature, just like it's part of your nature. And like we talked about how you just hone to the home. I mean, that you've just like this water gauge that, takes you to the homeless. And I am that way. I want to help people. I don't care what it is. I want to be the solution, help be part of the solution. And for me, knowing that I can't help that person all the way through keeps me from opening myself up, because I don't want to allow the frustration in. I don't want to allow the judgment. So it's easy for me to turn the blind eye than to actually do a small thing that may not. But that small thing I'm hearing today could be huge for that individual.
Of course. I'm sure you've heard of the, I don't know if it's a parable or whatever, and it may be Japanese in origin, but of the old man walking along the beach, and some big tsunami happened or whatever, and there were just hundreds of thousands of starfish on the beach, and he was one by one picking one up and throwing them back in the water, and a little boy asked them, "What are you doing? Do you see how many starfish there are? You're not going to be able to even help a tiny, that you're not going to be able to make a dent." And he said, as he throws one in, "I'm helping this one."
Yes.
And I think that is the feeling a lot of people have. I can't solve this, so why should I even bother? To me, it is, you're going to make a difference for one person. Who knows what the ripples of that might be? Yeah. Who knows how they're going to interact differently with others throughout their day? And so that's a really shift that I think most people can experience.
Yes. And here's, before we go, and I want to encourage all of you to share this. I just want to, this is something that I keep at my desk. And And it was found in, this is a version that was found in Mother Teresa's office. She always had it in her office. And it's called, it's a poem but it goes like this. It says, people are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you're honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best that you have, and it will never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it's not between you and God. In the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. So it's up to us to decide how we can be a part of the solution. And Willie, thank you so much for helping us see beyond the judgment of ourself and giving us permission to look through the eyes of compassion.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. I do not have it figured out. I'm just trying to stay open and conscious along the way. And some days I'm better than others.
Yes. And so we just need to try anyway. We just need to keep doing whatever it is that we want to do. Just do it anyway. Even if we feel a little awkward at first, I'm sure the first time you rolled down that window felt a heck of a whole lot different than when you rolled down your window today, right?
Now it's second nature. I have no fear, and I look forward to the interaction. I'm meeting a new person.
Yes. And it's healing your past. And you doing that, it healed your relationship with your father. It's healed your relationship with yourself. It's healed your relationship all the way along. And it will happen for us. So if we're afraid of stepping out of our comfort zone, figure out what is that little step and do it anyway, right?
I love that piece you read. Yes, do it anyway.
Do it anyway. And whoops. Oh, we lost Willie, but I want you to know that I am grateful to all of you who are watching today. Maybe he'll join us before I say goodbye, but I want to make sure you share, make a comment. I would love to hear what you think your part of this journey is. How can you make a difference today? And anytime that you see someone that's homeless, what is your role? Is it a pair of socks? I think I'm going to create a sign. I'm going to create a sign for the homeless, letting them know that I see them through the eyes of compassion. And so I want to encourage you to share what your takeaway is, and hopefully we can continue to grow together. So until next time, I'm so sorry that we lost Willie, but hopefully we'll get Willie back again, and hopefully with Eddie and some of the wonderful people that are making a difference as well. So we'll see you soon. Here we go. Oh, now I need to figure out how to, there we go. And now I get to say goodbye to all of you on Facebook. So we'll see you soon. Bye. And YouTube. Please share, like, and subscribe. Oh, there you are. The people on YouTube are going to get the final Willie. Free Willie, free Willie.
I don't know what happened, but everything went blank and I had to restart my computer.
Yeah, you know what? That has happened to me so many times. I've had to restart and rechange, but we're still on YouTube. So the YouTube people are getting an extra Willie. Yes, we get to say goodbye. So thank you so much, Willie, for coming on today. You speak to my heart. You speak my language, and I'm so grateful that we found each other, whether it was through TED Talk or you standing up.
I appreciate what you're doing.
Well, it's just a part of, we're all in this together. like you said, one of us can do just one thing, but all of us together collectively, we're an overwhelming majority. And I am so grateful for what you do.
Yeah, we're very powerful. And I think we sometimes forget how powerful we can be. Yes, I'm afraid, and do it anyway.
Do it anyway.
It's so important to just, and it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to feel helpless because I can't solve all the problems. That's all okay. That's just being a human.
I love it. I love it. And I'll let that be the final word. And we will see all of you next time. See ya.